The Hall of Fame game has been played. Training camp is still underway. Preseason is underway. And as promised, as I said in spring, I'd be coming on here giving my predictions for the 2023 NFL season. What is going on, everybody? Good Wednesday afternoon to you all. This is Steel Sermon in the house with another video. And around this time of year, I always give my NFL predictions, my standing predictions, and my seeding predictions. What I think every team has done in the offseason, free agency, trades, and drafts, and where I think they will be when the season commences and when the season ends. So, as always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link in the box below. I'm going to be going division by division. And as always, I will start off in the AFC, work towards the NFC. And after I do each conference, I will give my seedings predictions, not playoff predictions and who's going to win the Super Bowl, because it's only August 9th and the Super Bowl is in mid-February now, so it's obviously way too early to determine that. I usually have a good idea of who I think will make a deep playoff run by mid-season, but for now, I'm just going to give you my general thoughts on the seedings and how each team will do. So I will be going from last to first, as always. So let's get this underway. I have a lot to say, so I'm going to try to keep this as short as I possibly can. So starting off in the AFC East, this was a pretty interesting division to choose from because you have a lot of teams that were improving and some teams that took some steps back. But in last place, after much thought, I am actually going to say, for the first time in like a million years, the New England Patriots are going to finish last in the AFC East. I mean, they brought back Bill O'Brien, but really, what else have the Patriots done? In my opinion, they're just the least talented team in this division. They don't really have any standouts besides, their edge rusher with Matthew Judon and Juicy. They got a very poor wide receiving core. They didn't really address it much in the offseason, aside from adding Juju Smith-Schuster, which really it's just putting a Band-Aid on their problem. They got a gaping wound at receiver. That's not a big improvement. They're pretty much going to have to rely on Mac Jones to have a breakout year, and let's just say that's not likely going to happen. And, I mean, I know we can never fully count them out as long as Belichick is here, but this is probably the least talented roster that Belichick has had ever since he became head coach of the Patriots. But with that being said, they still got a strong defense. Christian Gonzalez was a good draft pick for him, and he serves as a nice blanket. They added Mike Gesicki at tight end, but still, the run game is very weak, and as far as the offense goes, they pretty much need to have Stevenson to have an all-pro season for the Patriots, and Mike Gesicki's probably going to be replacing Jonnu Smith, and they got more offensive line depth, and I know Belichick used his top 3 picks on the defensive side of the ball, which is led by Christian Gonzalez, but this is just a really flat-out, boring, one-dimensional team here, and I really don't see the Patriots making a whole lot of noise this season. They might be in it towards the end of the season, but then I just got them tanking. Well, not tanking, but just dropping some games to end the season and missing the playoffs. New England finished this season with a record of 7-10 in my opinion. Last place in this division. Now in third place, this was a tough call for me. But in third place, I'm going to say the New York Jets take third place. The Jets probably were the most animated team in the offseason this winter, spring, and parts of summer. Everyone was saying the Jets are just a quarterback away. They're constantly punting the seasons because they have a strong defense, and that's true. And they bring in Aaron Rodgers, of all people, who's very high risk, high reward with the draft picks that they gave away. Sure, they're getting one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game at the tail end of his career, though, and they really mortgaged a lot of those draft picks that they could be using for their future if they're serious about being a contender. That is, unless the Jets think that they're in win mode now, which I really don't think that they're in. But hey, I'm not the GM of the Jets, so we'll just take it from there. That being said, Garrett Wilson, the reigning offensive rookie of the year, he is a really good player. They got Hall at running back, and then a few of Aaron Rodgers' targets from Green Bay are joining the Big Apple, like Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb. They got McCole Hardman in the offseason. G-Dub 17 is there. Conklin is there. The offensive line, got a little bit better, and they got Nathaniel Hackett at offensive coordinator. Hackett may have been a terrible head coach, but he's a pretty good play caller as far as the offensive coordinating style goes, and that showed when he was with Green Bay. And the team also added center Joe Tippmann as a plug-and-play kind of lineman in the draft's second round. And the defense really got better. The bread and butter with the Jets last year was their defense, and that was why they were in the season for as long as they were. They got better play calling. They got Reed, Carter, Gardner at cornerback. I mean, this is just a really good loaded Jets defense. Am I gonna drink the Kool-Aid and say they're a Super Bowl contender and a playoff contender yet? I don't think so. I think they're maybe a season or two away from being completely that. But I do have the Jets actually finishing with a winning record this year. It's just that the AFC just got a lot better this year, and I really don't know if I'm ready to go fully on board with them. But I got the Jets taking a big step forward this year, going 10-7. Second place, some of you are really either going to agree or disagree with me on this, and that's fine. But in second place, I actually have the Buffalo Bills in second place. Now, on the surface, the Bills are a Super Bowl contender. They have a great team. And it's easy to see why anyone would call them a Super Bowl contender. But I take a look at what they did in the offseason. They didn't really improve. They just kind of stayed put a little bit. And there are some question marks with them. But still, you can't sleep on them because of how good they are. They got Leonard Floyd on the edge, and they got Greg Rousseau. But losing Edmonds to the Chicago Bears, it weakens their linebacking core because of all that money that they threw at Josh Allen. Kincaid in the slot, he's going to be a really good possession guy, but really Buffalo just kind of had a boring offseason. They had a really good chance to get DeAndre Hopkins up in Buffalo, but they missed on that. But still, you can't rule out the offense. They still got a ton of firepower on that offense with Stephon Diggs, with that running game they have, with that O-line that they got. And still, I mean, Gabe Davis as well. This is still a really solid Buffalo offense right here. And now they drafted Dalton Kincaid, like I said. The O-line, as I mentioned, with Connor McGovern and rookie Osiris Torrance should booster up the O-line as well. And then you got them keeping the veteran safety tandem with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde together. That was another win, but Buffalo's defense is starting to get a little bit older now. And in order to be successful on defense, you have to have young and youthful players. Not that they're not that they're bad players, but it's just that they're kind of getting older a little bit. And with the way Buffalo kind of spiraled in the playoffs, it just seems they're getting a little bit more predictable on defense. But it still remains to be seen how the defense is going to perform during Leslie Frazier's one-year hiatus from defensive coordinator. But there is absolutely no way you can rule out the Buffalo Bills. This is still a strong team, but I think they kind of took a slight step backwards with the offseason. I just expected them to do a little bit more. But still, a 12-5 record is my prediction for Buffalo. This is easily a playoff team. And winning the AFC East, I am going to go bold here and say the Miami Dolphins take the AFC East this year. This is my surprise team, my second surprise team of the year. You'll see my surprise team later in this video. But the Miami Dolphins, I have them snatching the AFC East this year. Last year, I said the Dolphins would be my surprise team in the AFC, and they made the playoffs. Now I'm saying they're ready to take that next step forward and win the division. They have a very lethal pass attack. It's very difficult to beat. But of course, you gotta have to consider Tua Tagovailoa's health. He had concussions all year last year. but the defense is much improved. Getting Jalen Ramsey over there and Cam Smith there, huge steps forward for the Dolphins. But losing Howard is going to take a big toll on them. Him losing a step at the very least. He needs to be more in zone defense, in my opinion. David Long at linebacker, that's a good addition for him. I think he's really good at coverage and stopping the run game. His health is a little bit of an issue, but it is a very big upgrade over Landon Roberts. Brad Chubb is down in Miami, his first full season with them. The D-line's still very tough with them, and they hired Vic Fangio. I think that was a very good hire for the Dolphins right there. And as far as the offense goes, as if, the Cheetah and the Penguin weren't tough enough, their depth looks even stronger as well. Mike White now backing up Tua, Braxton Berrios replacing Trent Sherfield, and then a third-round running back in Devin Ackney who adds more speed to that backfield. Dolphins are going to look tough, man. The only area that really concerns me with Miami is that they have a shaky tight end core where the Dolphins didn't do that much but replace Mike Gesicki, but honestly, I really don't think Dolphins fans have to worry too much about that. But, because this Dolphins team, they just got better, in my opinion. They took that playoff spot that they had last year, and they built off of it, and now I think they're ready to overtake Buffalo. 12-5, my prediction for the Miami Dolphins as they win the AFC East. Okay, moving on now to my division, the AFC North. As if you can't tell, I am a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But now let's get on into my division, the AFC North. Last place. Honestly, you have a good case of saying any three teams in this division can go to last place because this is probably the toughest division in football. But in last place, I'm going to say the Cleveland Browns remain in last place. It was a tough call, but I just think what the Browns did this offseason was good, but I just don't think they improved enough. It's just more so of if this happens and that happens and this happens, it's a lot of ifs for the Browns, okay? Because you got to look at Deshaun Watson and that contract eating up all the cap, and now they don't have any trade picks until at least 2025, or draft picks until 2025 in the first round to be able to recover from that because Cleveland mortgaged all that. But as far as Nick Chubb is in the backfield now, he has it all to himself now that Kareem Hunt is gone. I think that's the only thing that's going to keep the Browns afloat as far as the offense goes. Because Nick Chubb is a phenomenal running back. As a Steeler fan, he is really the only player that really concerns me on the Browns because we know how to stop Watson. We know we can lock down their targets. But that being said, Cleveland did gain some with Elijah Moore, Amari Cooper still there, and they got a new defensive coordinator, which needed to happen. Joe Woods was just not making the cut in Cleveland. The Browns were able to find enough money to revamp the defense with some free agent names like Dalvin Thompson, Juna Thornhill, and then Ogbenina. I can't pronounce this guy's name. Ogbenina Arkanokru. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I know I'm butchering the hell out of his name. But overall, you look at the Browns, yeah, they can make some noise. I anticipate them to be in the playoff picture this year, but it's just a really tough division. It's anyone's, to lose. And the Browns, I'm not saying they can't win the division, but if you ask me, I just think Cleveland did the least to improve in this division, and I got them finishing 8-9 this year. It's going to be a tough year for this division. Honestly, I think it's going to be a repeat. All four teams split with each other once again in this division. Okay, third place. Get ready for this. I got the Baltimore Ravens finishing third in this division. Now, let's get the big one out of the way. They finally extended Lamar Jackson. I knew they were going to extend him because he gives the Ravens the best chance at winning, especially how they played in that wild card game against the Bengals. They almost beat the Bengals with Tyler Huntley, for crying out loud. But really, they needed to keep Lamar for the long term. And they got a new offensive coordinator. Greg Roman's finally gone. So how could the Ravens possibly finish third? Here's the thing about it. We know the kind of quarterback that Lamar Jackson is. They're going more for a pass attack. And let's face it, Lamar is just not the best thrower. That being said, he probably has the best targets that he's ever had with Mark Andrews. He's still there. They added Odell Beckham in free agency. Zay Flowers was a great draft pick. Bateman's back and healthy. He has to be a standout receiver if he's fully healthy. Still got J.K. Dobbins in the backfield, but they also missed out on getting DeAndre Hopkins as well. So I think that kind of hurt the Ravens a little bit, but they still have some pretty good targets. That being said, Baltimore still has one of the best defenses in the league, and it's still strong. Baltimore has a long list of veteran free agents sitting on the market, like Marcus Peters, like Justin Houston. JPP is there as well, and they added cornerback Rock Ya-Sin and other candidates from within to replace departing veterans. And you might be, so with all that being said, it's just how can the Ravens possibly finish third with all these players that they brought in and these necessary cuts that they had? It's simple. The Ravens always start the season strong, and then they implode in the final month of the season. They've done this the past 3 seasons now. We saw it in 2020, saw it in 2021 especially, and we even saw it low-key last year. If the Ravens can avoid a bad December, then they can easily take this division. But until they stop with the late season implosions, I'm going to say this is just a team that's not one of the top teams in the league. They're a wild card team at best, and they're going to miss their chance at really being a Super Bowl contender. That's just me saying that as, not just as a Steeler fan, as much as I love to say it as a Steeler fan, I'm just saying it as a football fan who has seen this movie for the past 3 years. Baltimore finishes 9-8 this season. They have a tough season as well. All right, guys, second place. I'm putting my Pittsburgh Steelers in second place this season. Now, if you just want to know how we did in the offseason in general, literally look at any one of my Steeler videos that I made since like May, okay? But I'm going to keep it as short and sweet as possible with us. Starting quarterback on a rookie deal and a new GM in his first full offseason with us, the Steelers really had a lot of question marks coming into this season. The Steelers had some giant needs to fix in free agency, like especially with the offensive line and especially with the interior linebacker and defensive backs, and all Omar Khan did in his first full season was fix those up. Check the boxes off. Isaac Seumalo's here, Nate Herbig is here, and first-round draft pick Broderick Jones, who we traded up with the Patriots to get. Darnell Washington drafted on the offensive line and tight end as well. Then, of course, you look at the notable defensive additions like Cole Holcomb, Patrick Peterson, Landon Roberts, along with drafting Peasy Jr., Nick Herbig. The Herbig brothers are here. Keanu Benton, especially for that nose tackle position and to plug up the run. So while the Steelers did make major improvements this offseason, these things are going to happen in order for the Steelers to be a serious Super Bowl contender. Number one, Kenny Pickett has to avoid the sophomore slump. Kenny Pickett has made phenomenal progress at training camp. He's stepping up in the pocket more. He's getting more maneuverability in the pocket. He's making smarter decisions with the football. He's been diminishing the turnovers. I really like Kenny Pickett's development, and I think that he has what it takes to be a starting quarterback in this league, but he has to avoid that sophomore slump. He's taking more shots down the field. That's number one. Number two, offensive line has to improve. Yes, we brought in the talent that we need with the offensive line to improve it. Now it's up to them to step up to the reins. Number three, brought in Quan Alexander for the interior linebacker. Because let's face it, over the past couple of seasons, Bud Dupree, massive letdown. Miles Jack, massive letdown. We know what happened with Ryan Shazier. Mark Robinson, really good player, but he cannot be the only one as far as interior linebacker goes to stop that run game. But you bring in a guy like Quan Alexander who can drop into man and zone coverage and can cause turnovers. That on paper should be a very good addition for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number four is Mike Tomlin. He's never had a losing season. Last year, the Steelers weren't projected to do anything. We were 2-6 halfway through the season. Finished up the season on a 7-2 run. barely missing the playoffs with one of the worst O-lines in the league. Najee Harris still busting out 1,000 yards on the ground, and a rookie quarterback and a bum like Mitch Trubisky as his backup, and an inexperienced wide receiving and tight end tandem. Now these players have a full other year underneath their belt, and the defense got better, and you got Minkah Fitzpatrick back, you got TJ Watt back and fully healthy, you extended Alex Highsmith, you fixed up the defensive backs core, like drafting Peasy, like getting Patrick Peterson. You still have Levi Wallace there, and now you have musical chairs with Trey Norwood and Elijah Riley, pretty much, as far as training camp goes with defensive backs. The Steelers made some major improvements in this offseason, and if this defense is not top 5, it's a failure of a season for the defense. I'm just saying it right now. This is a defense that did not lead the league in sacks last year, but they led the league in interceptions, and they were top 5 in turnovers altogether. Now you're getting some of these guys back healthy. I think the Steelers can lead the league in both sacks and turnovers this year on defense. At least we should. Okay? It's up to Mike Tomlin to get the most out of these players like we know that he can do. And now he has more at his disposal, and it's up to Matt Canada to open up that frickin' playbook of his, stop telling George Pickens to run go routes all the time and get more creative with the routes, utilize a guy like Allen Robinson, who he also brought in from a trade with the Rams, because we know that he's there to be a veteran for these younger guys. All that being said, I really like the improvement the Steelers made, and I am ready to call this team a playoff team. 11-6. My record for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2023. But as well as the Steelers improved in this offseason, I still have to say the Cincinnati Bengals win the AFC North. Now, that offense is still lethal as hell. You still got Joe Burrow, you still got Jamar Chase, you still got T. Higgins, you still got Joe Mixon, you still got Tyler Boyd. Bengals also did lose a lot in the offseason as well, like Samaje Perine and Hayden Hurst. And, you know, they drafted Chase Brown and added Irv Smith and Nick Scott, but Orlando Brown on that offensive line should cause some concern for Bengals fans. He gave up a lot of sacks in his time in Kansas City. And knowing that Joe Burrow got hurt in training camp as well, and that he may not be 100% for the full season, that's a very big area of concern right there. And they also lost a lot on defense, mainly their 2 best safeties, Jesse Bates and Von Bell. Losing your 2 best safeties like that should cause the defense to take a small step back. Dax Hill, he needs to be that fill-in guy, but altogether it seems like Zach Taylor has a good defensive scheme for them, and it seems like he still has a lot of talent to work with. I really don't think that Bengals fans should have a lot to be concerned with if Joe Burrow can stay healthy for the season and that their offense is still being productive this year. Bengals fans still have a lot to love for this team, and the Bengals are still going to be one of the top teams in the league. So for the 3rd year in a row, hate to say it, Bengals take the AFC North with a record of 12-5, but it will not be easy for the Bengals. I'm saying that right now. AFC North is by far the toughest division in football, at least in my opinion. Okay, moving on down now to the AFC South. And starting off in last place are the Houston Texans once again. Now let's be fair with the Texans. They did make some big moves in the offseason, like they drafted C.J. Stroud and they traded for Will Anderson. They hired DeMeco Ryans from San Francisco, I believe, who is a really good defensive-minded coach. Dalton Schultz and Shaq Mason are there. Jimmy Ward they got from San Francisco as well. Shaq Griffin along with Stingley should fit nicely with that defense. But trading the first rounder for next year, a little bit of a head shaker for Houston. I mean, this is just a very young team that they still have a lot of experience and a lot of steps to go away with being a serious contender. But, you know, they brought in, they still have they need breakouts from like Nico Collins and Robert Woods, who they brought in, and John Mechie as well. Devin Singletary's a nice addition, and Jimmy Ward I already said Jimmy Ward, I'm sorry. Sheldon Rankins as well. But the thing is, none of them players will bring the Texans back to contention. The Brandon Cooks trade, like I said, it's a big body blow that kind of offsets many of the moves. And the biggest splashes came with the extension of left tackle Laramie Tunsil, and they drafting C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson as well. And that really came with a huge trade cost, and Houston's going to send a massive haul to the Arizona Cardinals that included the first-round pick in 2024, like I said. So the Texans made some moves, but not enough for them to get out of the basement. I still think that this is just a young team, and there's just going to be a lot of growing pains. 4-13, my prediction for the Texans. They also just have a really questionable quarterback situation as well, but even though it shouldn't be a no-brainer. Third place. Second and third were kind of tricky for me to pick, but in third place, I'm going to say it's the Indianapolis Colts. They got a really creative run game. I mean, they drafted Anthony Richardson, who's a very athletic quarterback, and he has great wheels with his legs, and he has a really good arm as well. I thought that was a good pick by the Colts right there. But still, like, their O-line just having a down year is a cause for concern as well. Jonathan Taylor is still there, but I really don't think we can call him a superstar anymore. He's still a very good running back, but I think he just kind of lost his superstar status last year with the step down that he took. It kind of seems like the Colts are going to go more for a read option kind of system. Not much on the offense that they improved there, but they drafted well enough to improve it, like Josh Downs. He's a good slot connection right there. Defense, losing Stephon Gilmore and Okereke are going to be big blows, but they still have Shaq Leonard at linebacker, and they drafted Julius Breps, which should keep the defense afloat. But really, in a nutshell, this season depends on how well Anthony Richardson plays with a new head coach they got from Philly who helped out Jalen Hurts. So if this guy can make Jalen Hurts look like the superstar that he is, I have no doubt that he can help out Anthony Richardson. But that's what the Colts season relies on. They made some nice additions like Isaiah McKenzie and a third-round pick on Josh Downs, like I said, to replace Paris Campbell. And, Julius Breps will try to fill in the shoes of Stephon Gilmore. The changes in the pass rush are also significant as Yannick Ngakoue is gone and Samson Ubakam is there as well. But really, I just don't know if the Colts are ready to be a serious contender just yet. It is a very young team, but I like the progress that they made going upward. I have to call a 7-10 record an improvement for them, but it's just a lot of what-ifs for them, kind of like the Cleveland Browns, They're a very big what-if team, and that's why I got the Colts in third. Second place, I got the Tennessee Titans. The Titans and the Colts are kind of similar, but the difference between the Titans and the Colts is that the Titans are a little bit more defined than the Colts are because we know what Tennessee has on offense. We don't really know that yet with the Colts. So that's my distinguish right there. But overall, this just seems like a transition year for Tennessee. You're 7-3 last year, and you lose out to not only win the division, but to make the playoffs as well. So there's going to be a lot of improvements for Tennessee this year, hopefully. But like I said, this year just kind of seems like a transition year. Mike Vrabel's still there, but he can't really just get over that hump if Tennessee's to be a playoff team, which I don't think that they are. Derrick Henry's still there, but the window of opportunity for running backs, especially in today's league, is rapidly diminishing. We don't know if Derrick Henry can be the entire team once again. They also have a very big question mark at who's going to be a quarterback. Do they go with Will Levis or Ryan Tannehill? Tannehill struggled with injuries last year, and they really took a gamble on Will Levis. Is he going to be the starter, or are they still going to go with Tannehill? That's just the main problem with Tennessee right now. Huge holes at wideout and linebacker, but no one said the rebuild isn't going to be painful for them. I just don't think Titans fans are going to recognize a whole lot of the team like they did from 3-4 years ago. But they did a really good job revamping that identity that they have on the offensive and defensive lines, getting Andre Dillard, Daniel Brunskill, and Arden Key, and drafting Peter Sorkowski. Great draft pick as well. And they still got that loaded rush defense. Jeff Simmons, Taylor Turt, Harold Landry, Ezekiel Shayer. And losing David Long is going to hurt them. And seeing as how they were below average in the pass defense with Kevin Byard nearing 30 years old, a.k.a. the window of opportunity for defensive backs starting to diminish right there. The secondary still needs help, but, Fulton, Farley, McCary, they need to make leaps in order for that to work. But with all that being said, they did land D-Hop to help out the receivers, and I think that's going to boost Tennessee's confidence on offense right there, getting a veteran receiver right there. And they did get a new offensive coordinator. Traylon Burks showed a lot of promise when he was healthy, and this is why the Titans are such a tricky team. They had a titanic collapse last year, but they do have signs of greatness. But I just think that this is a transition year for Tennessee, like I said. I got them being a mediocre 8-9, missing the playoffs once again. And then winning the AFC South for the second consecutive season are the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence. That's all you need to say about them. Massive boost last year. Doug Peterson did a phenomenal job. He was one of my picks for Coach of the Year last year, deservingly so. Now, with all that being said, they didn't really make a lot of huge moves in free agency just because of last season. But with getting Calvin Ridley, back from his gambling thing, which I think is stupid, you still got Travis Etienne, you still got Jones, you still got Kirk, you still got Evan Ingram, you still got Trayvon Walker in the pass rush looking for a bounce back year. There's a lot to like with Jacksonville. This is a really good young upcoming team that I think is going to make a lot of noise. And they did punctuate on it as well. Big B and Darius Williams and Tyson Campbell are there. Alukin and Lloyd are there as well. They did lose Jawan Williams and Robinson to PEDs, but still, they drafted Anton Harrison, which was a really good draft pick for him. And the defense seems to be the status quo for him. But while they did lose some depth with Arden Key, like I said, DeJuan Smoot and Shaquille Griffin are there as well. So I think that'll give Jacksonville a little bit more confidence right there. In short, this is just a really well-balanced team that's really looking to punctuate off of the season and the playoff run that they had last year. If all goes well, we could be seeing this team in the AFC Championship game. It's not a hard argument to make. I really like this Jacksonville team. They're going to cause a lot of problems for teams this year. 11-6, my prediction for the Jaguars. Then finishing up the AFC with the AFC West. Now in last place, I'm going to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. This looks like, aside from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the most unimproved team in the entire league. Jimmy Garoppolo, they got a quarterback, but it just kind of seems like a downgrade, honestly, from Derek Carr. He's just not an elite guy. He can win them games, sure, but he never struck me as an elite quarterback. And it's pretty much up to Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs to carry the offense again. But do they really benefit from Jimmy Garoppolo's kind of play style? Jacoby Myers offsets losing Darren Waller as well. That is just mind-boggling right there for the Raiders. Austin Hooper and Michael Mayer could make for a nice tandem, but the offensive line still appears to be the weakness as it was last year. And I think the defense is going to let them down big time. They got guys like former Steeler Robert Spillane, Duke Shelley, Marcus Epps, and David Long Jr., but this Raider team just looks very unimproved, and I think that they're in for a turn for the worst. 6-11 is my prediction for Vegas this season. Third place, I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos. Of course, the main headline for them last year, Russell Wilson, for all them draft picks they gave up, is he due for a bounce-back year? Perhaps he can, seeing now that Sean Payton was undoubtedly a home run hire for him, and now that the idiot Nathaniel Hackett isn't the head coach anymore, he's back to doing what he does best, which is play calling on the offense. The Broncos did aggressively add to the offensive and defensive lines afterwards. Losing Draymond Jones is going to hurt for him, but the team was able to sign Zach Allen to efficiently replace him while also improving Russell Wilson's protection with Mike McGlinchey and Ben Powers. So the Broncos offense did get better on paper. And they did land some RJ Pirine. He adds a lot of key running back insurance. Javonte Williams returns from a knee surgery, and Kawan Williams is a good fit at corner as well. So despite lacking all the first-round picks they have, the Broncos did well enough to address the wideouts and the defense with Marvin Mims Jr., Drew Sanders, and Riley Moss. So, yeah, altogether, this looks like an improved Broncos team, but let's face it, the AFC is just a tough conference this year, and they play in a tough division that's loaded with firepower on offense. They look better, and the defense still looks great, but I still don't know if I'm fully able to trust Russell Wilson. That pretty much relies on him to step it up. 7-10 is my prediction for the Denver Broncos. Second place, I got the Los Angeles Chargers. Now listen, Charger fans, all 7 of you, listen up. Justin Herbert got paid, but is he healthy? He was dealing with ribs all year last year that were broken. So is he healthy to go? They threw a bag at him if they're that confident with him. They got the quarterback that they needed, but let's face it, you're up 27-0 in that wild card game against the Jags, and you have 5 turnovers on defense in that game. That should be game over. I'm not saying Justin Herbert cost you the game, but he didn't do enough with that, with 5 turnovers. That should be, like I said, it should be game over. I don't know if I'm really fully ready to believe in Justin Herbert. But if he is the guy for you moving forward, all the power in the world. That being said, Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are still there. They were but with them being mostly quiet on the free agent front, with getting Eric Kendricks being the only major addition, I don't know if the Chargers are ready to overtake Kansas City. I don't know if anyone is. They did fill needs in the draft, adding another offensive weapon and Quentin Johnson in the first round, and more linebacker help with Tuli Tuipulotu, if I'm pronouncing his name right. Dan Henley there as well. Getting that right tackle help with Trey Pipkins on a big 3-year deal was important. Though the biggest move that they made was adding former Cowboys OC Kellen Moore to jumpstart the offense. And the defense is better and healthier, but they're going to need more than that. This should be a no-excuse year for Justin Herbert if he is deserving of that massive extension they got, especially with getting Kellen Moore. All things considered, the Chargers are still a good team, but I can't call them a Super Bowl contender. 10-7 is my prediction for the Chargers. And then, to no one's surprise, winning the AFC West for the 8th consecutive season, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, there's not much to say. Patrick Mahomes coming off his 2nd MVP season, and honestly, he might get a 3rd one this season. Travis Kelce's still there. That's all you need to know. They lost Juju Smith-Schuster, but that's not a big loss. McCole Hardman might hurt more for them too, as well, but still, they're very confident with Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, Kadarius Toney's there now, and that young secondary got better as well. So honestly, as long as they just have Patrick Mahomes throwing 300, 400 yards a game, that's really all the Chiefs need. But still, you got massive contracts like Patrick Mahomes and Chris Jones. It's not easy to get through, but they were able to find ways to make it work. They got better pass protection from free agent signings like Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor than they did with Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wild, who I think were necessary departures. And they did well enough to sign Mike Edwards on a cheap deal after losing Juwan Thornhill. Losing veterans like Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap and Kalon Saunders might sting, but the team is younger up front, getting Charles Omolufu on a 1st-round pick, and then Felix Azuma, I think that's how you say his name. So the Chiefs' O-line did get better. It looks younger as well, and it's going to take maybe a little bit of time for it to be more efficient. But overall, you look at what the Kansas City Chiefs are, it's easy to say that this team is a Super Bowl contender. 13-4, my record prediction for the Chiefs. I think they win one less game last year, but still, they are by far the cream of the crop in the AFC. So with all that being said, these are my AFC seedings predictions right here. Kansas City, I think they retain home field advantage as they take the first seed, as they get a first-round bye once again. I'm going to go Cincinnati with the second seed because they still got that lethal offense, and, it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with the complexity of the schedule, and they always match up well with Kansas City. Miami, I think they take a hard third, but there's still a lot to love with the Miami Dolphins. And then Jacksonville, I think they maintain the fourth seed once again. The fifth seed, Buffalo Bills get the fifth seed easily. No way Buffalo's not making the playoffs. 6 and 7 can be up for grabs for anyone in my opinion, but I'm going to say the Steelers get the 6th seed and the Chargers get the 7th seed. So those are my AFC predictions. Shifting gears to the NFC side of things, and starting off in the NFC East, in the basement, I got the Washington Commanders. Honestly, Washington could be better. They're almost complete, in my opinion, and they got good wide receiving core tandems and an okay run game. The defensive line looks great, and they got good safeties and a young corner. But what about that quarterback situation that they're going through? It's going to be between Howell and Brissett, in my opinion. Of course, you still got Terry McLaurin and Dotson. That's going to be a good duo for them. Payne and Allen on that defense. Payne and Allen as well. And then, of course, they still got Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Chase Young might be gone, though, but, still, they're important for that defense. But my question is about Ron Rivera. Is he really the right head coach moving forward? I was never really on board with Ron Rivera. I like that he's a risk taker, but I just don't really think he has that winning pedigree. And hiring the Chiefs offensive coordinator is great news for Washington fans. And they did attempt to fix his protection with free agents like Andrew Wiley and Nick Gates as well. While the secondary got a needed influx of youth with corners like Emmanuel Forbes and Jartavius Martin as well. So they do have a core and they do have competitive pieces in place, but this just kind of feels like a bridge season for them. Although I will say the biggest dub they took this offseason was that Dan Snyder is no longer the owner, so things can only go up for Washington right now. But in this NFC East division, they just seem like the least talented team, and I got them going 8-9. Third place, tough call for second and third, but in third, I'm actually going to say the Dallas Cowboys finished third. Now, the Cowboys still have a ton of firepower on that offense, and they still got a strong defense right there, but they made one fatal mistake, in my opinion. They fired Kellen Moore. I mean, why did they fire him? They were second in scoring and yards under his offense. Why did they fire him? I mean, I just don't get it. He was the main catalyst of why Dallas was so dominant on offense. Tony Pollard is still a great running back. Is he 100% good to go? And with Mike McCarthy calling the shots, I just think it's a step back as far as their offense goes, and that's been Dallas's bread and butter, like I said. Brandon Cooks with CeeDee Lamb, that's going to be good, but, with Ezekiel Elliott being gone, it might be best for them, but like I said, is Tony Pollard 100% good to go? Defensive side, Micah Parsons is a stud, easily Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Adding Stephon Gilmore should help out a lot, especially with a guy like Trayvon Diggs, who's basically the Jameis Winston of cornerbacks. And then on the defensive line, it's still a good four-man front that can cause a lot of pressure. The main thing with the Cowboys this year, it seems like they have to win it under Dak Prescott. And Dak Prescott, when the limelight is underneath him and when he's under pressure, he doesn't really strive in situations like this. This is a very big year for Dak Prescott, and if he fails, Cowboys are going to have to make some hard decisions. And with that exclusively being under Dak, I have to call this a step back for the Cowboys going to third place. 9-8, my prediction for the Cowboys this year. I really don't think they improved, but I really don't think they got significantly worse, but those are some serious strikes against them. Second place, the New York Football Giants. I got them taking second place. Man, did the Giants come out of nowhere. I love the offseason the Giants have. For one thing, they have a fantastic head coach in Brian Daboll, much deserved coach of the year, with making Daniel Jones into more of the quarterback that he is and getting the most out of the little talent that he had as well. He has a very interesting roster. Hodgins being that number one receiver. They didn't do much with bolstering it except draft Jalen Hyde, but the wide receiver room fills slots, like Robinson, Campbell, Slayton, Crowder, Shepard, and Hodges. But now you add Darren Waller as well. There should be no excuse for Daniel Jones to not have a step forward year this year as well. And Daniel Jones, speaking of him, he got a bag thrown at him, extended for 4 years, and he got a front that was loaded to him. Saquon Barkley just got paid as well. But the thing with the Giants, the blocking needs to improve, and they added to that O-line as well, and it got better. The defense is very talented as well, like Dexter Lawrence, like Thibodeau, like Williams, like Jarea, like Isaiah McKinney, and like Jackson as well. So, and also they added Bobby Okereke and Deontay Banks. Overall, this Giants team just feels much improved, and building off a season where they went 9-7-1, won a playoff game before they just got destroyed by a far better team in Philadelphia in the divisional. This just feels like an overall improved team, and I love the direction the Giants are going. Giants, they're not going to be an easy team to beat this year, and I got them going 11-6 this year. I think the Giants are in for a very bright future. But let's be honest, the Philadelphia Eagles are still the cream of the crop in this division, and if any team is to break that cycle of no repeat division champs since 03 and 04, it's them. They're going to break their own cycle. Philadelphia is loaded, and they just got even better. Coming off that Super Bowl loss stings, but they built off it again. They lost Javon Hargrave, Miles Sanders, Isaac Seumalo, and TJ Edwards, but they were able to keep the rest of that elite offensive line intact. In the draft, stole Jalen Carter, got Nolan Smith, and they got Kelly Ringo in the draft. Those are significant additions right there to the Philadelphia Eagles. Then they were able to keep Jason Kelce, James Bradbury. They were able to keep Brandon Graham. They were able to keep Big Play Slay. They were able to keep Fletcher Cox. They were able, and of course Jalen Hurts and Scott as well. Jalen Hurts extended. Coming off that season that he had, Philly expects a lot more out of him, and I think he's able to take on the challenge. They added Terrell Edmonds. They got Penny. They got Williams. They got DeAndre Swift on draft day to make an already stacked run offense even more stacked and powerful. I think the only roster in the NFC that can really compete with Philly are the 49ers, because maybe that's what they built their whole team around, a quarterback, like the Eagles did as well. But really, the Eagles are just the most complete team in the league. They got a ton of talent, offense and defensively, and there's just no excuse for them to at least not make it back to the NFC title game. Philly wins 14 games again, and I got them finishing with the best record in the league, 14-3. My record prediction for the Eagles this season. NFC North, in the basement. Get ready for this. The Green Bay Packers. They lost Aaron Rodgers. That's all you need to know. They don't have Devontae Adams anymore. That's all you need to know. Jordan Love is their starter. They don't know what they have in him. And him playing a full season like this, where, yeah, he did learn under Aaron Rodgers, but that's not to say that lightning's going to strike for the third time, where Aaron Rodgers learned under Brett Favre, and now Jordan Love's going to learn under Aaron Rodgers. We have to see that. Christian Watson's improving. He's having a lot of confidence as well. And then you still got Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in the backfield, and the defense is still competitive. But with me, the Packers just seem to have lost that spirit that they had. And it showed a lot of last season as well. They missed the playoffs, but they shouldn't even have been in that predicament. Green Bay did do well to add receiving options like Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, and Tucker Kraft early in the draft as the targets that can grow with Jordan Love. But the losses on defense with Jaron Reed and Dean Lowry are going to sting. And here's a hot take of mine. The Packers should honestly tank this season. Because if Jordan Love shows that he's not the guy moving forward with them, they know that in next year's draft, they got Caleb Smith on the board. Caleb Smith, great young quarterback, projected to be the top guy. So in my opinion, if Green Bay is way under 500 by midseason, they should just punt this season. I mean, they should just punt this season no matter what, because I would not be confident with Jordan Love as the starting quarterback. This should just be a sacrifice year for Green Bay. So I actually have Green Bay finishing last in the NFC North this year, finishing 6-11. They just really didn't improve much. Just a lot of in-house guys that need to step up, in my opinion. Third place, I got the Chicago Bears. I think the Bears have a lot of resources going into this year, and it's the team's big free agent acquisitions like Tremaine Edmonds, DeMarcus Walker, TJ Edwards, and Nate Davis. And the team also added a number 1 wideout, DJ Moore, by trading back in the draft for the Carolina Panthers, and they fleeced them on it, man. So now that we know the kind of quarterback that Justin Fields is capable of being, and last year they get him a weapon now with DJ Moore. But are they that good enough to catapult them into contention status? The Bears did hit on many of last year's draft picks and hope for a repeat with a class that includes with Darnell Wright and Gervin Dexter and Tyreek Stevenson. But the thing with the Bears is that they made a lot of improvement. The roster still just isn't quite there yet. And there's a little bit of a debate about the improvement while also carrying over a lot of cap space into next year as well. I mean, a rebuild doesn't happen overnight, and the transition doesn't happen overnight because they still got too many holes. But I think with these fine additions that the Bears had and Justin Fields proving that he's the guy for them, I think the Bears are going to be a very interesting team this year. 8-9 is my prediction for Chicago, barely missing out. Second place, the Minnesota Vikings. So Minnesota's very disturbing point differential and disappointing end to 2022 really warranted some changes, and they did make the changes, but to what avail? The defense still is a much-needed revamp, and getting Brian Flores from us as defensive coordinator is a big splash move for him. They did get Byron Murphy and Marcus Davenport and Dean Lowry as well, but I really don't know if Minnesota is able to sustain that. Losing Adam Thielen and Dalvin Thompson and Eric Kendricks, those are going to hurt for the Vikings in my opinion. But at least they tried to make up for it with a first-round pick in Jordan Addison. He's going to try to fill in Adam Thielen's shoes at wideout. I mean, they still got Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook, in my opinion, but I don't know if even Dalvin Cook is going to be there much longer. And the team returned to draft to boost their secondary in the middle of the rounds as well. And with the Vikings, it just seems like they're going to go through some growing pains and changes, but getting younger was honestly a good thing for them. And I still think that this is a solid team when you look at it on paper, but I just can't say it enough. I'm not a fan of Kirk Cousins, plain and simple. But Minnesota still has a strong season at 10-7 with what they have, possibly a playoff team. Now get ready for this, folks. This is my surprise team of the year. Winning the NFC North, the Detroit Lions. That's right, the Lions are my surprise team of the year. In my opinion, this is a playoff team. You know, they don't have as much competition in the NFC anymore. So really, the NFC North is wide open for them. Jared Goff improved, and that trade with the Rams they have is looking like a win-win for both teams. Honestly, at this point, it's looking more like a win for the Lions, despite the fact that Stafford won the Super Bowl with the Rams. But Stafford really is dealing with injury problems right now. He may be gone. So honestly, I think the Lions won this trade because Jared Goff's improving. Maybe the Rams gave up on him too early. Jamison Williams may miss time, but they still got that guy, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is just phenomenal. They did lose DeAndre Swift, but Cam Sutton is there. That's our biggest loss of the offseason, in my opinion, is Cam Sutton. Emmanuel Mosley's there. C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the secondary, big for them. And then they were also to swap out Jamal Williams for David Montgomery at running back. The Lions draft, little bit of mixed reviews due to the resource allocations, but getting first-round picks on a running back in Gibbs, a middle linebacker in Jack Campbell, two positions that can usually be had on the cheap for them. The Lions may have made up for those blunders with the good values that they had. Love getting the safety in Brian Branch, tight end Sam Laporta, and a quarterback in Hendon Hooker, who I think can be a good backup for Jared Goff. And when Jared Goff is ready to call it a career, he may be the guy for him. And of course, they still got Dan Campbell. That guy is a great motivator. And the Lions, we know they can put points on the board. Defense still a little shaky, but at least they're trying to improve it with them. Overall, the Lions, they are a tough team to beat. They play with pride, and I think they finally get over the hump and win the NFC North. 11-6. My prediction for Detroit. They are my surprise team of the year. NFC South. This was the trashiest division in the league last year, and guess what? It looks trashy still. Last place. I'm saying the Tampa Bay Buccaneers finished last place in this division. They did more than lose just Tom Brady, okay? They're going to start to feel the after effects of losing the GOAT. But Baker Mayfield seems to be revitalizing his career on his short stay with the Rams. And the Bucs are now on that improved play continuing in his new home. But is Baker Mayfield really the guy? He is now in, journeyman status. That is a very low bet after his struggles with Cleveland and Carolina. And the team also moved on from several veterans, aside from Tom Brady. They also lost Leonard Fournette, Julio Jones, Donovan Smith, Raheem Nunez-Rox, Mike Edwards, and Logan Ryan. They held on to those guys for more than 2 years, and now they're all gone. There are going to be a lot of hiccups in youth across the boards this year for the Bucs, and the team just starting to look at rookies is just going to be a very poor and down season for them. Tampa Bay, in my opinion, easily had the worst offseason. I got them going 4-13 this year. Terrible year for the Bucs. Third place, tricky to choose from because, these next three teams honestly could play musical chairs. But I'm going to say the Atlanta Falcons take third. They're a tricky team in my opinion. I got them taking third. On one hand, Jesse Bates in free agency was huge, and alongside A.J. Terrell, that should boost up the defense for him. B.J. Robinson was a nice draft pick. They still got Drake London and Kyle Pitts there as well. And Atlanta's offseason really hasn't shaken out as some predicted, though. And the team's apparently going to stick with the second-year Desmond Ridder as their starter. So that is just going to... I don't know what they're doing right there. The results are going to show it could override all the other moves they had. And it's going to be a shame that if the decision doesn't pan out. But as the team is getting aggressive in free agency... They got, David Olamina, Calais Campbell, and Bud Dupree, among others. But Bud Dupree, if I'm telling you anything about Bud Dupree, I like the guy, but he's injury-prone as well. Atlanta's going to turn back the clock this year and lean towards their run game this year, drafting, Robinson, like I said, with the 8th overall pick. And he looks like a really good top-shelf talent, but the team already had Tyler Aguirre in recent history. It's shown that drafting backs rarely ever returns in a solid investment. So I really don't know what the Falcons have planned in mind, but it seems to me at least they're trying to do something about it. But still, 7-10 is my record prediction for the Falcons. I just think that they kind of overthought this a little bit. Second place, I got the Carolina Panthers. This team could surprise teams this year, and I would be on the lookout for them. The Panthers are back on the right track, in my opinion. Don't you just love it when Frank Reich gets hired by the Panthers, a guy who I was screaming at for us to sign as offensive coordinator, and he had an experienced head with a coaching hire who showed potential in Indy as well. Yeah, good thing we didn't hire him as OC. But the Panthers are also defensively tough. They got Burns, Horn, Brown, Chin, Von Bell, Shai Tuttle as well. And, of course, they drafted Bryce Young, so there's probably going to be, question mark. There's going to be headlines with him. Miles Sanders they brought in the mix, and Terrence Marshall Jr. Is he ready to be a number one receiver? They drafted Mingo and got Hayden Hurst as well. They added Adam Thielen and DJ Shark as well. But are they strong enough to be able to compete? I don't like that they're going to be a full year removed now without CMC. And, I just think that there likely to be some growing pains with a rookie quarterback in 2023. But if there's any coach that I trust with working with quarterbacks, it's Frank Reich. Carolina can win this week NFC South division if Young matches the hype, but I don't know if I'm ready to hop on board with that yet. 9-8 is my prediction for the Panthers. I got them taking a big step forward, but I don't know if they're ready for that playoff spot yet. Winning the NFC South, I'm going to go ahead and say the Saints win the South this year. So the Saints were very quarterback needy, and they made a big headline with getting Derek Carr. But still, the addition of Derek Carr puts New Orleans far better in position to win the NFC South. Really not saying much because I don't know if Derek Carr is a superstar, but I think he is a big upgrade over Andy Dalton. They also made some smaller moves behind him. They got Jamal Williams, Nathan Shepard, and Calais Sanders as well. And after paying for a quarterback, the Saints really couldn't afford to keep Marcus Davenport, Caden Ellis, or Shai Tuttle anymore. So those defensive line losses are definitely warranted with Brian Beasy and Isaiah Forksy in the first two rounds of the draft. And this strategy could work, but it could also bite back with the Saints in the short term. What's the deal with Alvin Kamara? I don't know. His trial's still going on. But Chris Olave is a young stud, and this Saints defense is still very talented when all things are considered. I think the Saints win this division by default, but at least they made necessary moves to get better. 10-7 is my prediction for the Saints. And then wrapping it up, we got the NFC West. Oh my goodness, I am an hour in. Thank you so much for staying tuned if you stayed in this long. I don't blame you if you logged out. But anyway, NFC West. Last place, no doubt about it, the Arizona Cardinals. Remember when this team was 7-0 halfway through 2021 and they looked like an easy target for the Super Bowl? Well, they went from being one of the best teams to, in my opinion, the worst team. They lost DeAndre Hopkins. Kyler Murray is still hurt. They don't have Byron Murphy. They don't have J.J. Watt anymore, and they could lose Budda Baker. Paris Johnson was a good draft pick, and Hollywood Brown and Rondale Moore and B.J. Ozarigi in the draft were good additions, but still the Cardinals, they have yet to make a memorable move, and the hiring of Jonathan Gannon also hasn't received positive reviews yet. It just kind of blows my mind that a team could actually move on from Cliff Kingsbury and somehow get worse. Say hello to the Arizona Cardinals. Worst record in the league, the Cardinals, 3-14. And then in third place, not doing much better, are the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, I think they are going to be terrible this season. The Rams lost a lot of key players in key areas as well. Jalen Ramsey, Bobby Wagner, Nick Scott, Leonard Floyd, all gone. LA is going to be looking for a lot of true stars and scrubs at this situation. And even with Matthew Stafford coming back, I just don't see how it's going to help him much. So it's, in my opinion, all on the shoulders of Cooper Kupp and Akers maybe to carry the team. And while Aaron Donald is a fantastic, legendary defensive player of all time, he's the entire team now. Three guys don't make a whole team. That's the whole gist with the Rams. And they're going 4-13 in this year. They're going to be duking it out with the Cardinals for Caleb Smith. Second place. This was tough, honestly. But second place, the Seattle Seahawks. Man, did the Seahawks get good. They crucified Denver on that trade with Russell Wilson, and they punctuated off of it. Geno Smith, they got their quarterback for great value as well. Lockett and Metcalf are still there. They got Walker in the draft. Jackson and Jigma is there. and Zach Charbonnet, this Seahawks team's going to put up a lot of points this year. On the defense, Kobe Bryant is still there. Tyree Cohen at corner's there. Bobby Wagner's back, and they drafted Devin Witherspoon. They used those draft picks wisely, and boy, did they improve. They also spent some big money on defense with Draymond Jones, Jaron Reed, and Julian Love. The offense, like I said, wasn't left out either. Adding Evan Brown to the offensive line, and they drafted Anthony Bradford. Look out, buddy. Seattle's going to be a damn good team this year. I can't find an area where the Seahawks didn't improve, and they could be a legitimate contender in the NFC. Seattle finishes 12-5 this year. I love the progress the Seahawks made. But still, I just don't think they're as good enough as the 49ers quite yet, and I got the 49ers taking the West again. So, San Francisco, coming off that NFC Championship loss, they still look pretty stacked. And they have not one but two rookie contracts at quarterback. San Francisco could afford to keep spending money despite minimal draft capital. And they did spend with the addition of getting Javon Hargrave from us to that already amazing defense. QB situation, who to start? Brock Purdy thrived last year, but Kyle Shanahan is such a great coach that a Walmart worker could work well for him. Trey Lance seems like the guy for him, but it's going to be an interesting decision. Even Sam Darnold you can't even rule out. Then, of course, you got CMC, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. Those are great contributors as far as the offense goes. And then longtime safety Jimmy Ward is also gone, which might sting the 49ers a bit. But the 49ers have shown they can develop offensive linemen and they can still be a strong defensive team as well. It appears they might be banking on that pipeline after losing Mike McGlinchey and Daniel Brunskill. You just cannot count out the 49ers. They are, in my opinion, the only team that can really compete with Philadelphia in the NFC. This 49er team is still strong, and I got them going 12-5 with the slight tiebreaker over Seattle. So, with all that being said, here are my NFC playoff seeding predictions. Philadelphia, they cakewalk their way to the number one seed once again. As the Eagles, there's just no shot. There's no excuse for them to not make the NFC title game again. San Francisco back as the second seed. The 49ers are no laughing matter either. Detroit, my surprise team, takes the third spot. And while the Saints, they win the NFC South to claim the fourth spot. 5 through 7, honestly, are anyone's call. But I'm going to say Seattle takes the 5th, Giants take the 6th, and Minnesota takes the 7th. So there you have it, everybody. 67 minutes in, and I am just now finishing this up. If you stayed with me the whole time, that's loyalty, man. All the props in the world to you, all the thank yous in the world to you. If you didn't stay for the whole thing, I don't blame you. I'm very analytical and I like to talk a lot. I don't blame you if you tuned out at any point. But yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments below. These are my 2023-24 NFL predictions. This is Steel Sermon checking on out for the day. Let's get back to football, baby.